Welcome to Embrace the Chaos podcast with Ruben and Marina Deanda. We're so excited that you get to join us. Our whole podcast is all about running into the chaos of life and not running away from it.
Right.
Specifically with our relationships that can be so unpredictable, especially in the relationship with marriage and parenting and whatnot. And so today we're really excited because some of our best friends are joining us, and they're going to be talking about, we're having a storytelling time about their life experience as husband and wife, and we're going to talk about restoration and redemption and how God moves and God works in individuals' lives. So this is our conversation with Hector and Valerie Olivares.
Yes. Welcome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yes, thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Okay, so Hector and Val are some of our best friends, and why don't you tell us a little about yourselves, how long you've been married, when you guys met, just a little bit about kind of the background of your story. Yeah.
Yes. You guys have a great story. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Start?
Sure. So our story began in 1997.
In the late 1900s.
97. I know, man. Josh reminds us. Yeah, I know.
Our kids, our teenage kids tell us all the time.
Yes.
You guys grew up in the late 1900s.
You guys were born in the 1900s.
In 97. So in 97, that was the year that we lost Princess Diana and Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Biggie Smalls.
Biggie.
And that was the year. So when I first met Valerie, I was sitting in front of my home, and this is in North Long Beach.
Okay.
At the time, I was dating this girl.
Not
it was
Val.
it was transitioning into from middle school to high school.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
he was
so-
a child.
You were like 13.
I mean, I guess we were both.
No, I was 14. I was 14. I was
You were
14. I was
14.
14 years old. So John, my son Joshua, that's his age right now, 14. And I remember she gets dropped off, and she comes up the steps, and she asks, where my sister Yvonne was at the time. And I remember, again, I'm sitting in the front. My sister's inside the house, and I remember just real quick just said, "Oh yeah, she's inside. Come on in." And I just kind of pointed
She came
behind
out.
me,
I think she ended up coming out.
and then that was like the first time that I seen her. Nothing much from that, just other than, okay, cool, whatever. I'm going back to the conversation I had with the girl at the time, right?
Yeah.
I was going to Lakewood High School. She was going to Jordan High School in Long Beach, J-Town,
J-Town.
which was my home school, but I had to follow my siblings, going into Lakewood High School. And so that was the first time that we saw each other briefly. Now, we were formally introduced. It wasn't until like a year later.
Right.
Val was already in the teen ministry here in Long Beach and our youth ministry. And a year later, I was converted, was baptized, and was in the youth ministry. And I remember this. It was at the AMC and in Norwalk. We were going to go watch the Amistad. Yeah, that was the movie.
That movie.
Wow, you guys have a very specific memory about
I guess
this
because that's
stuff.
the first time I
good
really
memory.
ever met him.
And that's the
I
first time where
remember.
somebody, came up to us and introduced us,
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hector, Valerie. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, yeah, I kind of briefly remember her, but that was the first
You
time we met.
definitely remember.
I know she fell in love with me. I know she
Yeah,
did.
that was right there.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
And,
first
it's
sight.
The eyes tell
Was
it.
it at AMC or was it on the porch that you?
It was
were
right
like,
outside. It was
Definitely not on the porch. No.
it was right outside. Yeah, so that was like the first time we were formally introduced.
Yeah.
We were both 15 years old.
Yep.
Freshman, sophomore, freshman.
Freshman, sophomore.
Yeah, I was
Val's
a
5
sophomore.
months
Okay.
older than I am, a grade higher.
Yep.
And then she can go on and tell us our story, or tell them our story about
Okay,
how
so
we
then you guys
started
started like dating. and-
Yeah. So then, all right. So we were 15 when he started coming around the church. We both were 15 years old, and we started like dating, not like officially boyfriend and girlfriend, but I mean, we kind of were like boyfriend and girlfriend.
There was an understanding.
I think so, because we would go on dates like every other weekend, and that went on for like till we were like 17. Because then when we were 17, that's when he like asked me to be his girlfriend.
Okay.
And that's actually coming up on dang, how many years will that
April
be?
25th.
No, February 12th.
Oh,
it was
the
a teen prom.
yeah.
No, I'm
There's a lot
sorry.
of
We
dates.
had I remember dates very well, actually. He does. You do too, though.
I do. Tell him how it was our first date.
It was-
We had our first date.
When?
I think you were going to mention that.
Oh, so our first date, we had a prom. The church had a prom. I know you guys remember.
Yeah.
So we went to the teen prom together, and I remember that I think somebody was gonna ask me because they had called me, guys. but I didn't want to go with them. That's terrible.
Damn.
Because I
Teens.
think I
She was
wanted to go with him. I was
She was a
waiting for. I was
teenager.
like, I want him to ask me.
See?
So then
Told
I
you.
remember.
Told you.
Terrible.
No, right?
No.
Okay, good. So then he asked me, we had some event, I think, with the teens, and I remember we were in front of Wilson High School, and I was on a skateboard, and he was like, oh, do you have a date to the prom or whatever? And I was like, no. And then, he asked me to the prom, so we went to the teen prom together. That was our first date.
Nice.
Our first date together.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That was
first
actually our
date.
first date ever, I guess,
Yeah.
right? With each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it was-
And like, I guess.
That's a
first
big
date.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was the theme was Titanic.
Oh my gosh.
We were in
My
Burbank.
heart
What was
will
the
go
restaurant?
on.
The Castaway restaurant.
Yeah, Castaway.
It was
Wow.
just a bunch of high school students coming together from
Okay.
LA County and
Yep. I remember that.
So that was the first
Okay.
time.
So that was our first date.
her first time seeing me with my hair back. I had at the time I had long.
Oh, yeah,
believe it or
you
not,
sure
I had
did.
long
You
hair.
had like
Believe it or
luscious locks.
Yes, it was like up to here.
Ponytail.
It was
Yeah,
like
the
oh,
Back
gosh.
You rocked that
Man.
ponytail.
good old
Oh,
days.
that's right.
Man. What
No,
happened?
but that was the first time I slicked my hair
Oh, yeah,
back and
he
put
had
it in a
done his hair.
ponytail.
All right, all right.
She,
Okay.
I think that solidified for
That's
sure.
where
Like
it
she's
is.
like, this is
I
the
was
guy.
like, oh, that's
Like,
slick back hair.
I
That's
liked
so
him a lot.
funny.
Now I was like, I love him.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so then you guys, 17, you guys started dating.
Started dating.
Then you guys went to college together.
Yes, college.
Mm-hmm.
Still
Got.
dating.
We were dating, but at 21 we got married, so we were still in college.
Okay.
Right.
So we got married when we were 21. I believe at that time, I think we were like working for the church when we got married at first, but that only lasted for about a year, and then we ended up not doing that anymore, and then started working at our jobs.
So you're in the ministry,
Yeah,
working
yeah.
with the
Ministry
campus,
for-
Working
right?
with
Campus,
Worked with the
right.
campus, and then the
Yeah.
teens,
Yeah.
I think, for a little bit.
Okay.
And then
Here in Long Beach. Yeah.
and then after that, we started working. And then I remember I was working full time, going to school, and then married. So it was interesting,
Wow.
because I feel like it wasn't like a regular it was just like not like I don't know. I don't want to say a regular married couple because what does that really mean, right?
Sure.
But like a traditional, right, where you just you're working or you're like staying home with the kid. Well, we didn't have kids at the time, but but for us, I was like going to school full time, working full time, and then I was a wife, right?
Yeah.
And then we had stuff with the church.
Yeah. So you guys were young. You just were like
we
a
were
young,
really young.
young.
We were 21
Yeah,
years
21,
old.
yeah.
We didn't know what we didn't know we were doing.
We were young. Yeah.
I mean, it was great though. We really did.
Yeah.
When I look back at it now, honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. If we're
Yeah.
being honest,
I think we started a tradition.
what?
Yeah.
It started some kind of tradition because then we started seeing a lot of young couples too.
Oh, I do
remember?
remember that.
Oh, like
were
after
talking
you guys
about
got
that,
married, we were like
a
the-
lot of our friends started
I
getting
think we were
married.
the
early
we were the
on.
youngest couple at 21.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
it's like we
Yeah.
looked like we were 18. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't think that we would be allowed to get married because we were so young, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
remember that. I was like, there's no way we're going to get married when we're 21.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Especially
Nobody.
because remember our brains aren't fully developed till
Yeah.
right we're 25.
Learn now. Yeah.
I really thought that. Come on.
Gotcha.
We're young.
We know.
Yeah.
Yes.
We both graduated from Cal State Long Beach, sociology major, communications
Yes.
major. The day we celebrated, we graduated from ceremony. We brought Joshua,
Oh, yeah.
our
that's right.
firstborn. Joshua was only how many days was he? He was
He was like 11 days old.
11
I think.
days old.
Wait, how old were you guys when?
We finished.
What, no.
Oh.
When you had Josh.
Oh, we were 26.
26.
Yeah.
Yes. So we got
26.
married when we were 21. We had Josh when we were 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he was saying, we we were at Long Beach State, finishing up Long Beach State when I was pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah, we transitioned from Long Beach City College, Cal State Long Beach, part time. It was always part time. We couldn't do full time because we're working full time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we could have, but we were really devoted to
well,
helping.
You had to work.
Yeah.
and-
Right.
Yeah. All that. That's a reality for sure.
Yeah. So then we had Joshua.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was like a dream come true because it was really hard for us to have a baby at first. And I was we were trying to have a baby, but then I wasn't getting pregnant. I remember that. So when I did get pregnant, it was after like being on some fertility pills or drugs. And then we had Joshua, and like we graduated 11 days later. So he was there at our graduation, like Hector was
Wow.
saying. So
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were, we were 26. We had finished school. We had our newborn. Things were great, right, babe? Would you say? Like,
yeah.
I feel like up until he was maybe when he was going to turn 3 years old, that's when things started getting like difficult for me and Hex.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
Do you-
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
tell us a little bit about that, about like when things started to
Yeah.
change.
Do you want me
for
to share,
guys.
or do you want to?
Yeah,
go
sure.
first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So let me see. When did things start changing? Things started changing, like for me personally. I'll speak for myself. When so like after Josh was born, maybe like before he turned 3. I do remember that because I remember we celebrated his 3rd year. We were like kind of separated. But things started changing. I remember I kind of stopped going to church. I started going out and drinking, going to bars, like stuff that I really never had done like as a younger person. So I started doing that like when I was about like 29 years old.
Wow.
And because again, if you guys remember, we got married when we were 21 years
Right,
old.
Yeah.
We were like heavily involved in our church.
Right.
Going to bars and doing stuff like that was like frowned upon.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't do any of that. We
Right.
never ever experienced that together. At least being young and married and doing any of that stuff together.
Yeah.
So then when I did start doing that and experiencing it on my own, I wanted Hector to like join me, like, come, I want you to come. But he, because again, we were brought up pretty much like in the church, and doing the stuff that I was doing at that time was frowned upon. Hector was still doing church when I was like kind of stepping away. So he, I remember was like, he didn't want to know what I was doing, or he'd want to have nothing to do with it because he felt like, in his words at that time, he said, you're mocking God. So I always get emotional when
Oh,
I
look, I
say
brought
this.
this. I brought this for myself, actually. you can have some.
You can borrow.
Yeah, all right,
Thank
I
you.
brought this from the
Anyway,
weather.
so
Yeah.
I get emotional because I don't know, like it just, I don't know. It's sad that that's how it was, but it is what it is. And
Yeah. Well, it's
we're
because
here. We are now.
It was
but
hard, like during that time. Like I feel like you were just discovering like a new part of yourself, and you were wanting to go out and have these different experiences, and you wanted your husband.
I wanted
to join.
him. Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
wanted him to be part of it all. He was my best friend.
Yeah.
He's the only one I wanted to enjoy that stuff with. But when he told me that I was mocking God, like, he totally like shut me down at that moment, like literally. I'll never forget that. That's when he shut me down because I just felt like, once he said those words, I was like, I can't share anything that I'm going through right now with him because he doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Were you? I'm just curious about that, like,
yeah,
because
Yes,
you're,
please.
your son's almost 3 years old. You seem to have been living a happily married
right.
Yes.
experience in
Yeah.
life, and you would say, I mean, I've heard you guys say this, that obviously you had a foundation
Yeah,
in that
definitely.
marriage on God, on
Yeah,
Jesus, the
right.
Bible, all that kind of stuff. Do you think these decisions to want to experience these things, did they come from a place of unhappiness within your, where you were at in your marriage or in your family, or was it just really a genuine, like, I'm just so curious about this side
Yeah.
of life that I've never experienced. I would
Right.
like to do that.
Yeah.
Was that, I don't know, what was it? The trigger,
Honestly,
I guess.
it was in the beginning. It was very much just, this is new to me. Like I've never ever done any of it, and it was fun,
Sure,
and like because
sure.
in the beginning I wasn't doing anything bad. Like I would go out with my girlfriends and we'd go to bars, and then like I would end up getting drunk, unfortunately, because I didn't really know how to drink. I mean,
Sure.
I would drink like 2 drinks and I would just be like, I was a very like, it was light. I was a lightweight, I mean, I didn't know how to drink. I never had drank before really. And like we wouldn't drink together, right babe?
Yeah,
like
no.
we really didn't drink together. So in the beginning, and I just wanted him to like be part of it because
Sure.
I'm like, babe, like this is
It's a social aspect.
yeah,
It's
like
kind of
this
fun.
is something we've never done.
Yeah.
Like we're young, you know. I was still like, wait, we did have Joshua already, but
But still, you're 28.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like it's
Still young.
I've never
Yeah.
done this before, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I wanted him to join in, but what happened was when he told me when he said those things to me about mocking God, I remember like it shut me down, and then because at that point like he was everything. He was my best friend, everything. Like, you know, when you think about a best friend, when good things happen to you or even bad things, the first person that you think of is that person.
Yeah.
And he was that person to me. But when he said that at that moment, that's when I was like, oh, I can't share anything with him anymore because you know, he doesn't want to hear it. So then
There's one incident. I remember the first time she told me she went out with some friends that she had met at kickboxing. And she went out and she just got drunk and she started vomiting and she started telling. But for her, it was like a funny story. For me, it was
funny.
like, I don't find that funny because I was like, first of all, I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah.
But all these things go through my head. Like, what happens like if no
Yeah.
one's watching you or keeps an eye on you or just leaves you unattended and some other
Yeah.
dude or wolf just tries to take over and take
Yeah.
advantage? And you know, these are the thoughts as a husband, as a friend, I'm thinking about it. I'm going through and I'm going, man, I didn't want to hear that. And on top of that, it's like I began to feel sad because I slowly started seeing Val kind of transition out of the church.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell the devotion was diminishing, and it made me sad. It made me sad at the time, going, man, this is, you know, this is someone I, you know, for years you know, it was a dream for us to grow together, to grow old, to be in God's church, to have good relationships, you know, be healthy, and to be together forever.
Yeah.
And here we have a little toddler, and I'm like, man, how is this going to look now? You know, how's this going to look? How am I going to have to help him develop, you know, his own spiritual convictions, his beliefs? Because I don't know if she's going to be able to do that. So these are the thoughts that were going through my mind, and
Yeah.
you know, that's when I think it's one reason why I just felt like, you know, I didn't want to hear it. You know,
Yeah.
she felt judged. And especially because at one point I did say, you know what, I just feel like you're mocking God. It's like here you are laughing. I don't find it funny. You know, if anything, it's you know, it's hurtful. You know, and I'm like, you know. So I was beginning to see how things were developing. Just kind of, oh man, like this is not looking good. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now at the time, you know, it's funny. She said we really didn't drink much. You know, we really weren't. The only thing we were drinking was that Kool-Aid back in the day at church. But that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story for a whole other day.
That is a whole nother
Yeah,
podcast.
do a whole nother
yeah,
episode on
yeah, we
that.
won't go there.
Okay, we probably should though.
I mean,
That's the only
part
thing
of
we're
what we're
drinking,
talking
seriously.
about is
Okay.
that right
Okay.
now. Shoot.
But you know, apart from that, you know, here we are just trying to, you know, raise this little boy
Sure.
to be
Yeah.
a man of God, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, here we go. I guess I'll do this on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know,
It's interesting how like because both of like your stories of that time they're both true at the same time. Like you were afraid for her, you were sad for her, but for her, like for Val, like you were like, I'm experiencing like this really fun and cool thing that I get to like because you're a very social person
Yeah,
too. Like that's what I love
definitely.
about you. Like you're like a really really good friend, and you just love to be around people.
I love you.
And and I love that about you. And so that I feel like that's what you were experiencing at that time
Yeah.
was like, this is fun. I'm with friends. I'm
Yeah.
hanging out. Yeah, like
Yeah.
this happened, but it's not that big of a deal because look at how much I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that again, it just shows you like there's these two realities that can like exist at the same time,
Yeah.
and it just is what it is. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. So
it
then moving like
So after he had made that comment at that, like I said, I just
Yeah,
shut down. I felt like I couldn't share anything with him, and I was like, oh, you know, he was my best friend, so I was like, what am I gonna do? Okay, you know, I just realized, well, I just can't share this part of my life with him.
Yeah.
So then during that time, at work there was this guy that worked also with me. We were in different departments. But I remember like I always had guy friends at work, and Hector knew of them. He always knew them. Like we always would like hang out. We'd all go out to eat, do stuff together, like, you know, friends. But this particular friend, it was different. And during the time, he popped into my life during the time that things were not the best with me and Hector. And I remember just being able to, I just remember what I couldn't share with Heck, I would share with him. I remember that's how that's kind of how that all started, and just, looking forward to going to work to talk to the person, about how the weekend was, because I had gone out with my new friends from the gym, and we had gone out and had a good time, and I couldn't really share with Heck. So then it just, I felt like when that happened, it just something a block was put between us. And then when this person was excited to learn about this new, life that I'm going, just for me, he didn't know. I mean, I don't know if he knew that it was a new experience for me, but that was a new experience for me when I was going through all that.
Yeah.
And I had no one to share it with. So yeah, to me in the beginning, this was just another guy friend that I have, the other friends. But then things started getting to change, with the way that he would act with me, and because we weren't in a good place, the attention was kind of nice, and and then one thing led to the other, and we got involved in an emotional relationship that eventually turned physical, and I had to share it with Hector. I mean, I ended up telling Hector, and then that's when things got, obviously bad between him and I, because I was in such a bad place, at that time, because I felt growing up in the church, and we've always, I don't know, at the time I feel we felt we were in a bubble, this could never happen to us, because we did everything right, we did everything the right way, we didn't sleep with each other before we got married, none of that, we did everything the way God expected it to be. And then for all this stuff to start happening, it was just kind of and what I'm saying, the reason I said that is because I just remember starting to have feelings for somebody else. And then I was this isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I'm only supposed to feel this way towards him. And I was so confused. And then I was do I really love him? And again, backstory to that people don't know is, Hector and I became Christians when we said, we were 15. I had never slept with anybody. Hector, and he was the first person I had ever slept with. Lost my virginity to him on our wedding night. So I had never been with anybody else but Hector. So then you meet somebody new, and then I think you have all these feelings, and you're why am I feeling this? I'm supposed to only feel this for my husband.
Yeah.
So then I was just confused. And then I remember coming home, and I would tell you stuff. I remember I would ask you stuff if we ever cheated on each other, would we tell each other? And then you would be yeah. And then I think one time I was you know what? I think that if we cheat on each other, we should probably just keep it to ourselves. Do you remember when we had that conversation?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then that's when stuff started. I had already done, probably for sure done something, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to tell him without or not tell him, just the battle, but then eventually I did tell him, and he wanted me to completely stop talking to the person, and but I feel I was in already so deep emotionally that I just, because I was I can't, why do I feel these things? It's so hard. So when he was I need you to cut it out, I couldn't.
So the emotional affair, it was in 2012.
I believe so, yes. Beginning of 2012.
2012, that's when the emotional affair started. What she told me was different. Now, we'll share later more details, and it's a different confession. She didn't confess this, at the time until years later. But she did have I remember the first time she told me they had kissed. They had gone to a movie theater.
Yeah, and that was true.
I remember thinking oh man. Which the very first night, because I already knew her spirit, my spirit. They were troubled. You can tell, our spirits are just trying to communicate. There was a wall.
Yeah.
And I just remember, no, there's something. She's not telling me something. She's hiding something. Yeah. And then it was late night, and Joshua had gone down already. But I was I needed, I needed to know what's going on, But deep down my heart, I felt oh man, I think she cheated on me. I thought that, and I was I just need to figure out what happened here. But when she told me it was a kiss, it was more okay, But I remember that night. I cried that night. I cried. I was, man, so many emotions.
Yeah.
I think that might be the first time I felt anger. I felt anger, and I felt like
What do
I
you mean the
just
first
wanted.
time you felt it?
I've never felt that. I mean, to this day,
Oh,
still.
like that anger.
Yeah, just
Or
anger
like-
at the time, just
Okay.
because there's so many emotions. Who is this dude? What the hell, man?
Yeah.
What time does he go in? Where is he at? Which side of the building is he at? I knew where she worked, and so I'm like, okay. So all these thoughts are going through my head
Yeah.
that are not godly, and you know, that night I really didn't sleep that night when she confessed to me that she had kissed him, and all I could think of was just her and the guy, and just thinking what else happened, and okay, I'm just gonna take her word, and hopefully that was it, nothing else. But it was a lot of emotions. I wanted to go find out about this guy. I wanted to go beat this guy, you know. And the next morning, I had to go. I had to get away for sure by myself. Very next day, early in the morning. Early in the morning, I went to my prayer spot in Palo Verde, out in the cliffs, and I just cried more, and I prayed, and I talked to God, and then I tried to sing to God, and I tried to pray, and then I started cussing, and I started like just feeling like all these like, you know, ungodly feelings in me. And it's just things I wanted to do. And I was heartbroken.
Yeah. How are you feeling towards her though? Like,
I remember feeling, you know, disappointed, sad, hurt. The trauma didn't kick in until late, until we separated, which we'll share in a bit too. But I felt, disappointed, just down. I felt like, I thought we were supposed to grow together, you know, faithful to each other.
Yeah. So when did you guys decide to separate? Like, when did that happen?
It was 2013, July. I moved out July 2013 on my own. It's the first time.
And this decision was made because...
Well, Val she kept working with the guy. He was still there.
Okay.
She stopped going to church. I can tell she wasn't taking this marriage seriously. I went out and sought advice from different, older members in the church, elders that I talked to, ministers, and prayed about it. And I just felt like, you know what, I think it's time for me to move out. And I moved out on my own, still in Long Beach. For the first time, it was a small studio downtown Long Beach, and that's kind of where it started. And that's when I saw a different transformation from Val. But I moved out July 2013.
Got it. Wow.
I know. When he says that, I'm like, yikes, because I was like so angry, and during that time in my life, so many things. But yeah, he says transformation because we would fight. I remember, right? Is that what you're talking about? How we'd fight, and
Oh yeah.
like I'd kick him out of my apartment. I was just so mad at. I mean, and
We never really argue.
No,
I mean, we would have
really
little
wouldn't.
stupid bumps, man. Little minor bumps, you know.
But in your marriage, it
Every
was
marriage.
primarily
It was chill.
peaceful.
Yeah, it
and
really
But we
chill.
never yelled at
So
each
even
other.
This was a new experience
yeah.
of this
Oh,
level
yeah.
of rage and
Yeah, I
anger.
remember when she
Yes.
slammed the door. I remember the first time she slammed the door. That was after we had separated. I was like, "Oh, what the?"
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
would
"Oh, heck no,
cussing
dude."
at him.
We'd
I mean,
cuss
because
each
I was
other
just
out.
mad. I was so mad at the time because I remember it was probably because the thing with Hector and I, like once we separated and he was on his own, I was on my own. There would be times when we would try to reconcile, and then obviously I know he hadn't dealt with things, and he still had, I'm sure things triggered him. So we would start working things out, and then he would just kick me to the curb, be like, yeah, no, I don't really want to do this actually. And I remember thinking what? I mean, and I get it. Of course he doesn't want to work this out with me. I cheated on him once. He probably thinks I'm going to do it again because that's what they say, right? Once a cheater, always a cheater is what people believe.
Yeah. Well, there's just a level of trust that gets broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because I don't believe that.
Right.
Because I feel, there's so much more that goes into when that ends up happening. And
Thank you so much for joining us for our first part of our conversation with the Olivareses, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with part 2.